good evening, and thank you to you if you've joined us for this talk this evening. The talk today is about the tale of two fountains, and the book was written in Northampton because of the discovery of the two identical fountains that were made in a foundry in Northampton. Now, the tale or the story is about their journey, the journey about the two fountains, identical fountains, which finally ended up 5,000 miles away. If you look at the picture on the left-hand side, it's the Icesac Fountain, which was installed here in the Market Square in Northampton. And on the right-hand side is the Fitzgerald Fountain. And behind that, you can just about see the Ready Money School, which is behind. So if we take you now to the iron foundries, because we're going to talk a little bit about Northampton itself, for those of you who don't know where Northampton is. Northampton is a very historic town, and it's about 60 miles north of London. And it was known during the Victorian era, when both these fountains were cast at the iron foundry, for all the iron foundries that were there in the town, but also for the manufacturing of shoes. Now, I don't know whether you've had a chance to see the film Kinky Boots, but if you have, you would have seen a lot of Northampton there, because some of these shoe factories still exist in Northampton. So today we'll be talking about their journey, the journey of the Icesac Fountain and the Fitzgerald Fountain, which were made in a foundry called the Eagle Foundry in Northampton. Now, the Icesac Fountain was installed in the Market Square in 1863, and the Fitzgerald Fountain was installed in Mumbai in 1867. So we'll be taking you through that journey now, and we'll begin by talking about the iron foundries in Northampton.
The first map here, which shows the Northampton iron foundries. Now, there are about over 15 foundries in Northampton, and they were producing remarkable cast iron engineering works. And one of them was Eagle Foundry, which was owned by Edward Harrison Barwell, a well-known Victorian founder. And in this foundry, two identical fountains were made. One was Icesac Fountain for Northampton. The other one was Fitzgerald Fountain for Mumbai. Now, we were quite amazed to see that such magnificent fountains were made in Northampton. And it's the greatest achievement in cast iron engineering, 45 feet high, nearly 4-story high. And you won't see these fountains, probably only fountains in the world. And the foundry, of course, in Northampton was producing lots of other things too. They were producing staircase railings for stately homes. They are producing fences and so on. Now, the next one is Charles Gode map. Now, on the left-hand side, you see quite an old document. Now, this is known as Gode map. Now, Gode map was produced for insurance purposes. In the Victorian era, there was no evidence of what was there if there was an accident or a fire. And Charles Gode was a pioneer for map making. He was born in London. He worked in Great Britain and of course in Canada. And he produced these maps, which are still very much in existence and people still use them. He passed away in Toronto in 1910, I believe. And on the right-hand side, what you see is the emblem of Eagle Foundry. Now, what is the importance of this emblem? that this emblem obviously appeared on almost all furniture produced by Eagle Foundry. The next one is actually Eagle Foundry. You can see the foundry there. And on the left-hand side, this is a very historical bridge in Northampton, which is known as South Bridge. We were trying to find out how this fountain made its way to Mumbai. Was it true or was it false? But when we found his catalog, which was produced by Eagle Foundry or Barwell and Company, underneath it was said that the fountain was produced by Barwell and Company or Eagle Foundry and then sent to India. Now, it also said that the twin was installed, as Jyotsna said, in 1863. 4 years later, the twin was installed in 1867 in Mumbai. Now, we also found very interesting information that during that era, a number of other foundries in England were manufacturing, again, very fascinating cast iron work. Companies like Edmund Boughton, Robert Smith Company, Colebrook Dale. Now, Colebrook Dale is a very, very important foundry. It manufactured the first ever iron bridge over River Severn in the world. And they manufactured a number of fascinating furniture. The Wolverhampton area, Birmingham area, Colebrook Dale area. And we feel that and we believe actually at the moment that Khada Parsi, which is also a very iconic structure in Baikala, was produced here in these foundries. We haven't got any full evidence of that, but I think it is the Colebrook Dale area where Khada Parsi was produced. The next slide is cattle market. This is just to show how things were in the old days before the fountain was placed in the market square. The cattle trade was very, very buoyant at that time. And this is probably 1847 photo of the market square. The market square is a beautiful square, probably the biggest in England, which has got so many beautiful historic buildings, Georgian buildings and Victorian buildings. And it's next will show you how magnificent Market Square in Northampton is. And this is the landmark structure, which is Icesac Fountain. The next one is stalls in the Market Square. Now, this is a very, very important picture for me because I was asked to design the Market Square refurbishment work. And it had something like 250 stalls. And it was a very thriving market, agora, if you like. And it had, obviously, stalls which were selling fruits, vegetables, clothes. It's like a kind of supermarket, you know. And the Market Square, obviously, was at that time a big focal point for people to come, talk to each other, and meet. So it was a very, very important meeting point. But when I started designing the Market Square, I gathered some plans. And on that plan, I saw some drawings of the fountain. They were not fully there simply because the number of drawings were missing. And I then made some inquiries, and unfortunately, Eagle Foundry didn't have the drawings. But that really showed me that there was a fountain, a magnificent structure, standing in the center of the Market Square. Now, this is Jyotsna will take you through.
Yes, and this, of course, is the Icesac Fountain. And as Arun has just said, it just looked really magnificent in the Market Square. It is one of the largest market squares in the whole of England. And it was, as I say, installed in the Market Square in 1863. That's the plaque, which was on the Northampton Market Square, because it was given to the people of Northampton by Samuel Icesac. Now, Samuel Icesac was in the shoe industry, and he had a lot of factories manufacturing shoes in Northampton. And it was one of the gifts that he gave to the people of Northampton to put in the center of the Northampton Market Square. So we come now from Northampton, 5,000 miles away, the journey that the replica fountain took, and it was installed in 1867 in Mumbai at the metro junction. So this picture was something which I was very familiar with, because being from Bombay, having been born there, I schooled and was educated there at university. So I remember this fountain because it was very often a route that we took via the metro to go to school. So something that I almost grew up with. And therefore, when Arun showed me the picture of the fountain, the Icesac Fountain here, I saw the similarity between the two fountains. We go on next to find out how we actually got to find the fountain in Mumbai. But before that, if I show you this plaque, which is, of course, the plaque which is on the Bombay Fountain. And because the fountain was made in honor of the then governor of Mumbai, who was Sir Seymour Fitzgerald, which is why the fountain in Mumbai is known as the Fitzgerald Fountain. And so we come now to our story, our journey to find the Mumbai Fountain. Once we saw the connection between the two fountains, we had to find the fountain. And during our visits to India to visit family, we went all around Flora Fountain, everywhere to have a look at the place to see if we could spot this fountain. Had it been moved because the metro junction was widened, there were lots of roads that led into there, and perhaps that was the reason it was moved. So we had a lot of journeys around to see if we could find it, but we couldn't find it. In the end, we finally went to the Prince of Wales Museum. And it was there that we met the curator of the museum, who was then Mr. Gorakshekar, who was a very knowledgeable man, very passionate man. And he said to me, if you're going to find it anywhere in Mumbai, it will be at the Paul Dajilad Museum. Now, the Paul Dajilad Museum, of course, was known as the Victoria and Albert Museum. And in fact, it was the oldest museum and older than the Victoria and Albert Museum here in London. So we were on our next journey then to the BDL, or Paul Dajilad Museum, to see if we could find it. And we were then taken to the back in the gardens of the BDL, and this is exactly what we saw. And this was back in 1996. But let me tell you, or let me read you a very interesting article which came in one of the journals here in Northampton. It was written by a historian in Northampton called Ernest Reynolds. And he wrote this in a local magazine called the Northampton Town Affairs. And he writes, I remember one Christmas morning in Bombay, when suddenly, turning a corner, I encountered the fountain of Northampton Market Square. No, this was not a dream, not a fantasy of the unconscious, or indeed a Christmas Eve hangover, because it was there around Christmas time. But it was a sober fact. There it was, cast in the same mold in some Victorian ironworks of the 1860s. To one specimen, fate had allotted a permanent domicile in Northampton. To another, it gave an eternal home beneath the glistening Indian sky. And that was something which really motivated us to look for the fountain in Mumbai when we finally found it at the BDL, and of course, to then continue to write our book.
As Jyotsna said, we were very, very pleased to see, and I can't express or explain the joy we had seeing the fountain, the twin fountain of Northampton. And when we went there, beautiful environment, I must say, a nice Palladian building, Baudaji Museum. Very, very happy to see the fountain there. And we then made some inquiries, what is the plan for the future for this structure, because it was in a slightly, if you like, dilapidated condition. But at that time, they said there were no definite plans, but they were certainly looking after the fountain well. They had obviously enclosed the area quite well around it. Then, of course, our research showed some photos of dismantling the Northampton Fountain, which was a very sad event for Northampton people. And I think people feel that it was needlessly pulled down. Now, what happened is that fate may be that the fountain from Metro Junction was moved in around 1960s, maybe 1962, 63. At the same time, Northampton Fountain was also moved, dismantled in 1962. Now, people in Northampton feel very strongly about it. They would like to obviously see the fountain back. But what we have now, only few remnants. And the remnants of Northampton Fountain are here. These are well kept, of course, in Northampton Museum. And this is the Barak crest. This is one of the taza or bowl, and a very important plaque. Now, Jyotsna will take you through.
This plaque is very, very important because I'm not sure how clear it is to you, but right at the bottom of that is a name which is written, inscribed, and that is W. Atkinson, Fecit. Now, what that means, Fecit in Latin, is made by. And here we have the name of the artist designer, William Atkinson, who actually designed and made this in the Eagle Foundry. That's where he worked. Now, while I worked for BBC, while I was working, of course, for BBC Radio Northampton, I had put on my website my interest in the fountains and was contacted by a number of people to share their memories of the fountain. And one of these was the great, great granddaughter of William Atkinson. And I remember this very clearly, her email to me, and she said, everybody remembers the fountains, everybody praises the fountain, but nobody remembers the person who actually designed and actually was the designer artist of the fountain. And she said, if you ever do write a book, please do mention William Atkinson, because he was the one who designed the fountain and worked at the Eagle Foundry. She then shared with me the self-portrait of William Atkinson, who was the artist designer of both the fountains, that is the Fitzgerald Fountain and indeed the Icesac Fountain here in Northampton. Now, William Atkinson was born in Sheffield, and he lived in Sheffield till he was a lot older and came to Northampton. But Judith James, the great-great-granddaughter of William Atkinson, shared with us a number of pictures which we have in the book. And in particular is this house, which is in Sheffield on Havelock Street, is where he lived, where he grew up. He was the son of a Mr. Atkinson who worked in the stainless steel industry. Now, you may know that Sheffield was very, very known at the time for its stainless steel factories. And I'm sure many of you would have seen some of the cutlery that was made here and in Sheffield. And so William Atkinson grew up there and then came to Northampton to work in the iron foundries. He lived in Northampton and he got married to a local girl and then was married in the Baptist church, which you can see here, which is in the center of Northampton. Now, here's something where we have a little bit of connectivity between Northampton and India. And if you've ever been to Calcutta, then you would probably know the names of Dr. William Carey and indeed his nephew, who was Eustace Carey. Now, William Carey, he was very much in education. He was based at the Srirampur University, which was near Calcutta, and he was a professor of Sanskrit, Marathi, and Bengali. And Eustace Carey was a missionary in and around Calcutta. So this is where William Atkinson got married, and he then lived in Northampton and worked at the iron foundry, which was the Eagle Foundry. And I think this was something which was mentioned by Arun earlier on. Eagle Foundry was where both these fountains were cast.
I think the important thing was, as we were gathering proof, if you like, that the Icesac Fountain and Fitzgerald fountains were twins, we needed sufficient evidence before we write a book. And we then decided to write to the National Archives in Kew in London to see whether there were any patent or registration marks and so on. And while we were doing this research, we were helped by Sanjay Yadav from the BMC Heritage Cell. And he noticed the patent mark on the Fitzgerald Fountain, which is in front of you. And that was what Barwell had registered at the National Archives. This is the National Patent Act. And this is the drawing which shows, which I just sketched out, showing how the patent mark works. It has the dates and all the years and so on. And it really proved that the fountain was produced and registered at the National Archives. And this is exactly what helped us, that it was registered on 25th of January, 1864. And we are very, very happy to find this proof. We then also noticed some beautiful work actually by BMC Heritage Cell, how they nicely did the motif. The motifs were very well preserved, even the bowl, because again, you know, Fitzgerald Fountain was a piao. In the Indian tradition, there is a, if you like, belief that if you give water to a thirsty, it's a punya karma. And this is what exactly, we were so fascinated with this. So all these fountains, of course, were providing water for the needy people. This is the piao, and I know that Mumbai Municipal Corporation is restoring a lot of other piaos, you know, which is very, very interesting. We then, of course, have the opening.
Yes, these are pictures of the inauguration, of course, of the Mumbai Fountain. It's fully restored by, of course, we have to give great credit to the project team for the Bombay Municipal Corporation, and the restoration or the inauguration of this fountain took place just over a year ago on the 30th of May, 2021. And of course, it gives us great pleasure and gives me great pleasure to see the fountain back at its original place at the metro junction in Mumbai. And we also have a picture taken of the Mumbai Fountain at night with the light on top. And as you can see, it's been so beautifully restored that you can see all the carvings, all the work on the plaque as well.
We now move on to the connectivity between, as Jyotsna said, there is a lot of connectivity. We found, of course, the connectivity, Dr. William Carey and Eustace Carey, but we also found the connectivity between Town Hall, which is the Northampton's Guild Hall. Now, this is a beautiful Gothic revivalist building, which was designed by Edward Godwin and Matthew Holding. At the same time, of course, in Mumbai, some masterpieces in Gothic revivalist architecture were being produced by Frederick Stevens and people like those. And in this picture, the local, at that time, Member of Parliament, Charles Bradlaugh, invited Dadabhai Nauroji to address the people of Northampton, because Charles Bradlaugh was very supportive of nationalism in India. He was, of course, very close associated with Annie Besant, and he was well respected by Mahatma Gandhi, so much so that Mahatma Gandhi attended his funeral at the Woking cemetery. Now, Bradlaugh was also very positive and was hoping actually that India will get the independence. And he did all his best to try and support. And in fact, he was known in the circles or in the parliament as Member for India. So that really shows his commitment. This is another beautiful sculpture in the Guildhall, which shows the Barwell, Mr. Barwell, receiving Queen Victoria to Northampton when she visited. Now, Barwell was also a Liberal member of Liberal Party member. He was a mayor of Northampton. And at that time, like Bradlaugh again, there was a lot of Liberal association in Northampton. The next one is just
the next one is I'll say a few words about Caroline Chisholm. You may or may not have heard of her, but she was born in Northampton in 1808. And her connection with India was that she was the wife of an army officer, and they were based in Madras, what's known as Chennai now. And it was while she was there, it was one of the things that she did, which she was very famous for. She's known for being a feminist, for being a very progressive thinker, and of course, a humanitarian as well. So one of the things she noticed was that the number of women that had to work and who had to take their children and young babies to work as well in conditions that were not very good. And so she was the one who designed for the first time a creche. This was the first creche in the whole world. So, and it was started in Madras or Chennai back in the 1850s. And she set up this creche first in Mumbai, and then of course when they moved to Australia she took the idea with her, but she's still very, very known and famous here in Northampton. There is still a school which is called the Caroline Chisholm School, which still exists here in Northampton. We're going on to show you a few fountains or piaos, because that's something that we did some research in while doing this book on the fountain. And if you look at this beautiful fountain made of white sandstone in Gothic style, it was donated by Sir Chisholm to the people of London. It's in the middle of Regent's Park, and you'll see very few people around because this was taken during the pandemic. But again, it's known as the Ready Money Fountain. And of course, Sir Chisholm was known for the number of fountains that he donated to the people of Mumbai, over 40 fountains. And the next one, which I'm going to show you, is the one which I'm sure many of you from Mumbai will be familiar with. And this is the fountain, which is at Crawford Market.
We now end up with the beautiful landmark building, headquarters of BMC, and which is again designed by Frederick Stevens. We believe that it is a grade 2A heritage building, and so it should be. Again, Gothic revivalist style building. It's a beautiful, has a beautiful interior. And we really want to thank the members of the project team. And what they have done is simply exemplary work actually in restoring the fountain. Sanjay Sawant, the executive engineer, Sanjay Adhav, senior heritage engineer, Deepak Paunikar, the well-known sculptor, Pankaj Joshi, the consultant architect, Harshad Madhani of Skyway Infra Projects. It was a great pleasure to present our book to the Joint Municipal Commissioner, Mr. Chandrasekhar Chore, who welcomed us at the BMC offices. And we also want to thank Mrs. Ashwini Bire, Additional Municipal Commissioner, for her contribution on BBC Northampton, for people of Northampton. Our thanks to the team Khaki for inviting us to give us this talk. And we personally feel that Mumbai's heritage is underestimated. It does require more and more publicity. And I think we welcome Khaki's initiative. So what is the aim of our book? The aim of our book is to inspire people of Northampton, motivate them to think about this fountain. Can we have it in the market square? We want to also say that all these heritage structures, heritage buildings attract tourism, add to the economy, and we know BMC is doing quite an excellent work actually in this respect. We also want to say that we want to cement the relationship between Mumbai and Northampton. Thank you for listening to us. And if Jyotsna wants to just say a few words.
Thank you for listening to us. And we've certainly enjoyed the connectivity and finding out more about the connectivity between Northampton and indeed Mumbai and other parts of India as well.
Thank you. If there are any questions, Jyotsna and I will be very pleased to answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for this really enlightening talk. And it's quite astounding to find these two so far apart. And it was really interesting history. I do have a couple of questions. One is, I think you'd shown a map early on, which says, does the map show a railway line from the bottom right corner to the near Foundry number 5? I think it was
right. Shall we go? Yeah, go there.
I think it was early in the presentation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one, yes.
Yes. So is it about the railway line?
Yes.
People want to know about it?
Yeah, does it show a railway line at the bottom?
Yes. This railway line came after the construction of the Grand Union Canal. It was obviously, there was a station there, St. John's Station, and that railway line was obviously a big provider of raw materials to Northampton town centre industries, if you like. Now,
but there was also the
Grand Union Canal here.
Canal.
Yeah. Now, one thing, of course, which I will add here now, and the map shows the foundries, but there were also other engineering works in this area. And the one which I will mention now is called Bassett Logue. And Bassett Logue was producing some excellent models for ships and even model railways. People may have heard Bassett Logue name. One of his biggest achievement was to produce a silver train for the Maharaja of Gwalior. That's another very nice connectivity. And the engineering firm actually worked in the southern part of the town center. So yes, after the Grand Union Canal, the railway was also another big link, if you like, providing goods to all these industries in the southern part of the town.
Thank you. I have another question from Commander Mohan Narayan. He says the fountain would have been transported to sea by sea. Was it transported in CKD condition and then assembled here? And were Eagle Foundry representatives present on the occasion?
Good question. We know that the fountain, the parts, were shipped to India. There was also a local tale before that it was shipped to Australia, but we did not find any evidence. In fact, it was shipped to India. There is more evidence of that. Now, the fountain was in fact bolted together like a Meccano set on the site, and it was joined there. Now, it's a good question, whether there was any overseeing by Eagle Foundry members, I do not know. But I would have thought, actually, reading all Times of India articles, that there was a sufficient expertise in Mumbai to assemble it. So I can believe that. And there are, in our book again, we have mentioned people, companies actually, some companies in Grant Road area who were involved in fact, painting and basically installation, if you like, process. So I have belief that it was assembled in India by Indian engineers.
Okay, thank you. And we have one more question about rain. Do you know how they would rain-proof the fountain? Yeah.
Yes, they would use the paint, if you like. Maybe now there is a lot of advancement in cast iron engineering. But the fact that cast iron material was very popular at that time because of its durability. Cast iron, one of the material, which is the durable material, but it required painting on a regular basis. And of course, any items on the fountain which were bronze needed slightly different treatment to stop oxidization, over degrees. But I think, again, there was expertise in India to do the work, actually, and we are quite impressed the way the fountain was looked after. I mean, this fountain structure was probably the tallest structure, and that's why the light used to be switched off. Again, we have said that in our book, at night, because it created confusion for ships approaching Bombay Harbor. So, all these things were very much taken care of. But in our research, we found that this was the tallest structure in that area.
We have one or two more questions. I'm not sure, they're not related to the fountain, but I'll ask them anyway. One says, how come they don't use such beautiful architectural types today? And the other one is different architecture.
Go on. Yeah. Sorry, what is the second one?
The second is, what are the different architecture styles in Mumbai and how can we learn about these Gothic, Indo-Saracenic, etc.?
Yes, yeah. As far as the first question is concerned, the important thing about this is that these classical buildings, classical buildings, yes, structures, had a place, a prominent place at that time. And yes, there was a lot of emphasis on that. But I think we got to move on now, and there is a modern, if you like, concept. Things moved on from Gothic revivalist to Art Deco, Art Nouveau. Then, of course, we had a modern kind of approach to buildings. And I think we just have to move on. Whatever is in the past, we look after it, we learn from it, and we make sure that they represent the layer of that history. And we should be very proud of that. As far as the second question is, can you just repeat that second question? I just need to.
Where can you learn more about architectural architectural styles in Mumbai?
Yes.
Gothic, Indo-Saracenic. Well, I would encourage anyone to come on a Khaki walk, but if you have any other suggestions, that's fine.
No, I think we should be proud of, because as I was saying to you, that Guildhall, which was again Gothic revivalist movement started, and the Gothic revivalist buildings were flourishing. You had people like prominent people, like of course Frederick Stevens, the master of these buildings. We had George Whitted, who obviously designed. You had Axel Haig. All these people were great kind of designers. So George Gilbert Scott. But again, somebody who was born and educated, my first, if you like, degree in Baroda. I know Robert Chisholm, which was again a master of Indo-Saracenic architecture. And he, in fact, gave a character to Baroda. And he would be known as a master of, or creating a pioneer of Indo-Saracenic architecture. So there is enough, if you like, in India, number of buildings. Again, Robert Chisholm did so many buildings in Madras, Chennai. So there is enough, if you like, documentation available. So yes, we can learn a lot from these great architects.
So I'd like to thank you both very much once again for taking the time to do this talk for Khaki, and we look forward to more from you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.